Hey, what up everybody? I'm using my old camera, so I hope it's working. So, Carpo here, Josh. I'm going to do this video about liminality, or liminal. The word liminal in the term. I'm actually very, I'm very fond of interesting words. You know, you hear the word subliminal a lot, but I'm not referring to subliminal, although it's a derivative. But liminality was a word coined, I think, in the 1800s. A liminal state is that state of transition where you're not one thing and you're not another. You're transitioning into another state of being. I guess you could say that it's the moment of potential, but it's originally tied to occult meanings, and they used it for ritual context. So in other words, the liminal state is a state where you're doing a ritual and you get to the point where you are just about to transition or to bring forth whatever you're trying to manifest, or before you become something different. There are many mythological tales about animals that can only be killed in their liminal state, such as transition, like shapeshifters and whatnot. This is where the trickster comes from. The idea of the trickster is, that the trickster will fool you. Many different cultures have their different trickster. They have different names. I guess Native American culture is mostly what I'm familiar with in their form of the trickster. You could call them the jinn or whatever. And I don't know which of these entities or forces are different or which of them are the same. I don't think anybody really knows for sure exactly which entities are on what level or the true intentions. In fact, when people say that they've received a message from, say, some, Pleiadian cluster, and that they're telling them this and this and this, and they say that the person told them to beware of like demonic entities or bad entities, I think, well, how do you know that who you're speaking to isn't demonic or evil? In fact, I've gone as far as to, not to be offensive, but when people say that, talk about prophets, and speak about Jesus and whatnot, and saying that it's the ultimate word, but then say beware of false prophets, I say, how do you know that Jesus wasn't a false prophet? These are the things that we wonder about and never can really know for sure. How do we know that these guys weren't possessed by demonic entities? How do we know that some of these, like say that the reason why they're promoting peace isn't to, in order to keep us passive, for some kind of new world order, as people are always worried about. Personally, I don't fear the whole new world order Illuminati thing. I think it's taken out of context and gone a little too far at this point. I guess I believe that they want us to think they have more power than they really have. Really, there's some people who have financial control and control over the world. The reason why I'm talking about this is, and through the liminality, and I got into this, is because this is what puts our society in a liminal state. Now, a liminal society, or a society that's living in liminality, is a society that's in transition, but the potential is still there. We don't know which way it's going to go. And there's a word, I wrote it down here. Oh yeah, somebody was talking about liminal spaces. I guess liminal has to do with society and ritual, and liminoid has to do with a break from society or play. So it would just be like an opiate and an opioid, I guess. So it's a different type of temporary state. I wrote down two things here that are important. Three things, actually. One quote that I thought of: look beyond your rational mind without abandoning it. Realize that there's something greater, but don't just fall victim to any of the bullshit out there. Because in this liminal state, we can go either way with our collective consciousness. Given second sight, one cannot make sense of the picture that they're receiving. And the example someone gave was as if someone's never seen their entire life with their eyes, and you give them an eye surgery at, say, age 40 or 50, and they're able to finally see again. Quite often they're still blind. And what it comes down to is that their brain has not developed the ability to decode and analyze the information they're receiving, the shapes, the textures, the colors. So even though they can see, their brain hasn't wired itself to understand that sight. And I think similarly, when we have these second sight or these other, I try not to get too metaphysical on it, but I do believe that there are stages where we can tap into the collective consciousness. And if we don't know how to make sense of the picture of what we're seeing, we tend to get these channelers who bullshit us with stories about Pleiadians coming to save us, and people grasp onto whatever sounds good. That's just the way the world works. So the term that was given was schismogenesis. I don't know if that's pronounced schizmogenesis because it may be like schizophrenic. Schismogenesis. It's a state of permanent liminality. And this is, if you want a word for what the elite or those in control have tried to keep alive over these decades, it goes back thousands of years. People have been using power for control and fear for control forever, but only over, say, the last 100 years has it really become a science. And the U.S. was the staging ground for that science as far as the capitalist society. Everyone's free to make what they want so long as they follow the rules of the people who have the most. But this schismogenesis is a state where a society is permanently in this confused state, where we're transitioning and always going for the next thing, and we're always trying to, we're waiting for something to happen. It started in the 60s, in my mind. People have been having revolutions forever, but usually they're resolved. The big world revolution that's happening right now is a personal revolution with each person, but it's one that has such a large impact that it's not just a couple of small countries quarreling over some land, or a couple of religions quarreling over which one's right. We're talking about a worldwide argument here about what the fuck are we going to do with our future. Pardon my language, but I feel very strongly about that. What are we going to do? Everybody's got these ideas about how we can fix this little bit of CO2 problem, and this guy's got an issue about how we can try to end racism, and everybody has good intentions, but what's the big question? What is the be-all, end-all of truth, of what we're really trying to find? Because until we figure that out, we're going to be in this schismogenesis. We're going to be in this permanent state of confusion, always hoping that tomorrow somebody's going to bail us out. For Christians, Jesus is going to come save them and punish the wicked. For the New Agers, sometimes it's the Pleiadians are going to come down and they're going to help us out. Some people believe that the aliens are watching over us to make sure we don't destroy ourselves. Maybe these are all true. In fact, the alien thing I do believe is true to an extent. I looked into the studies on how they've affected the missile silos and whatnot, but I'm not talking about aliens in general, but rather the specific idea that they're going to help us out of our problems, that we have an actual savior. And the reason why it affects me so much is because I look around and I say, nobody's coming. These are the same kind of people. As an example, a metaphor would be someone who, when the catastrophe hits, they sit around waiting for the government to bail them out. And the water's rising, and the water's rising, and the flood's getting deeper. And they're just sitting there in their armchair just saying, nope, they'll come. And I feel that this is why I've voiced opinions against those who are waiting for Jesus' return, because often many of them have resigned themselves to not putting forth any real effort to help the world, but rather just saying, well, you sinners will, destroy it, and I've got my place. And the New Agers are just as bad, or even worse, because they're taking other ideas and turning them into whatever they want them to be, and saying, telling people exactly what they want to hear. It's like personally catered bullshit for each group. Oh yeah, these guys are going to come help you out, and all you got to do is buy this CD, and so on and so forth. So everybody's cashing in on this morphogenic bullshit, not the morphogenic field. Sorry, I used the wrong word there, but the the way that it's being abused, the idea of this field